It was all looking ugly and gloomy days after the November 20th presidential election in the United States of America as Donald Trump supporters took it to another level. The protest climaxed at the Capitol Hill cast doubt on the possibility of the January 20th, 2021 presidential inauguration. Finally, the day has come and Joe Biden is set to be sworn in as the 46th president and Kamala Harris as 49th vice president of the United States of America. Democrat Biden defeated Donald Trump of the Republican on November 2020 to proceed to the White House, even though the outgoing president has not completely accepted the result of the election. At the ceremony today, history will be made as Kamala Harris becomes the 49th but the first woman to become vice president. Also, first black person and first South Asian elected to the vice presidency and will become the highest ranking woman ever to serve in the government of the United States of America. Welcome to this special program on the inauguration of the 46th president of the United States of America. We shall be doing studio analysis and our team of guests in-house. Also virtually from the United States, we shall also bring you live proceedings at the presidential inaugural as it unfolds. Stay with us as the program continues. I am Omini Odan. I believe you're glued to the set as we are going to bring you proceedings, studio in, studio out, the United States, and what is happening at the inaugural of the 46th president of the United States of America. Once again, let me introduce first and foremost Ambassador Usman Saki. His Excellency Ambassador Usman Saki is a directing staff at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies and also former Deputy Permanent Representative of Nigeria at the United Nations. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odem. Thank you for having me.
Before I bring up our guests on via Zoom, let me quickly ask you, how do you feel about today, given what transpired between the days up to now?
Well, like you rightly pointed out, it was actually, like transiting from a gloomy scenario to a happier, brighter situation. And I think that is what it portends, not only, for the United States of America, but for the entire world in terms of the peaceful nature of the transition, despite the disruptions caused, I think last week or 10 days ago in the U.S. Capitol by supporters of Donald Trump, who went at his bidding, at his instigation to roughen up people in the Congress and actually, to force their own narrative, to actually, insist that Donald Trump won. That was an undemocratic practice, totally alien to the United States. But happily, the institutions rallied around the Constitution and the rule of law and overcame that shock, to the system. And today we are seeing that normalcy has returned and the rightfully elected president and vice president are being sworn in. So it is something that we look forward to in terms of resilience of democracy in the United States, and also an example, for the rest of the world to imbibe from, to see that to establish strong institutions and to have committed people in institutions who will uphold the rule of law, constitutional rule, and the will of the people at all times.
Yeah, quickly, before we go to join our guests who are joining us virtually via Zoom, that leads me to this question.
Yes.
Between individuals
yes.
and institutions, who determines national goals or national interest?
Well, the national interest is established by governments, by each succeeding government. But there are certain constants that are given, taken for granted. In our own case, since 1960, October 7th, when Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, our first Prime Minister, enunciated Nigeria's foreign policy objectives and national interests, virtually it has remained constant. But alteration and flexibility has come in, whereby elastic situations have been created where each government will now focus on its own immediate priorities. So the changes occur when different personalities come into office, but institutions remain to determine and guide the implementation and continuity of the national interest. So both institutions and individuals matter in terms of reciprocal action to determine, first and foremost, the survival of the country, and then the continuation of the function of government.
I ask you this question because given what happened the last few days, what lesson for Africa regarding the incumbent and the institutions and what the extant laws say?
Well, thank you very much. This is a very important question. I think we learn from history and we learn from reality always. And the reality today is that the supremacy of law must take precedence, must be the first consideration of every leader in Africa. And secondly, we should not undermine institutions through policies or through commission or omission. We should respect the integrity of institutions. And at the same time, when governments or leaders appoint people into institutions, they should do so based on certain criteria: merit, experience, knowledge, and also the integrity of the person being appointed, to respect rule of law, to respect constitutional provisions, and moreover to bring dynamism and focus and patriotic determination to office. And in that way, you find the marriage between individuals and institutions working in synchronization perfectly in the interest of the country.
Okay, let's quickly introduce our guests who are standing by from the United States. As soon as they are ready, will be notified. Now, transitions in Africa, transitions, as much as we saw loopholes, people were surprised for the first time to see it happen in the United States. Transitions and ceremonies, comparatively, what do you make of it from what we are going to see today?
Well, we are going to see tradition being reenacted. Tradition of 200 years or thereabout being fully brought out, although with limitations imposed by today's situation, that is the COVID-19, and also the heavy security emplacement in Washington because of anticipated threats from extreme right-wing supporters of Donald Trump. But despite this, tradition will be maintained. The swearing-in will be solemnized by the justices of the Supreme Court. Constitution will be invoked, and the commitment and dedication to rule of law will be extracted from the president and the vice president. And then the train will now be set off towards actually smooth transition and handing over of government. You remember the most important critical thing that will be handed over from Trump to Biden is the nuclear code and the nuclear, button, so to speak, a bag that constantly accompanies the president. So these are the systemic things that we will expect to see in terms of the transition. And also the movement from Blair House, where Joe Biden is staying temporarily, to the White House, is something that will be ceremonial also, perhaps military guard of honor, salutes, bands, and all these kind of things. Ceremonies are essential part of governance. Ceremonies and protocols are essential part of state function. So I think it's very important in Nigeria that we should observe ceremonies, solemnize them, and also see that Nigerians derive pride in the ceremonies that we conduct. Because since Roman times, since ancient times, ceremonies and protocols have been established in order to give an aura of importance.
Okay, let me just hold there for now. Yes. You hear arguments across board, in the front burner, across divides, when you hear the word democracy, it has come to stay in the world. But now the Chinese model is there, it's working for them. And back in Africa, precisely Nigeria, you hear people talk about institutions that are talking about adaptability. They tell you democracy is not indigenous to Nigeria. So let's take a look at this, the evolution of democracy in the United States of America. In this report, Adebola Brooksley-Sunday takes a look at the evolution of democracy in the United States of America to date. How does it look like?
The American Revolution of 1775 won political independence for 13 of Britain's North American colonies, which subsequently formed the United States of America. History has it that the founders envisioned the United States not as a democracy, but a republic, and had placed safeguards such as the Electoral College in its 1787 Constitution to prevent simple majority rule.
We have to choose between a left or right.
The early 1820s saw many Americans embracing majority rule and rejecting old forms of difference that were based on elite ideas of virtue, learning, and family lineage. A new breed of politicians, led by the charismatic Andrew Jackson, learned to harness the power of the many by appealing to the resentments, fears, and passions of ordinary citizens to win elections, leading to the rise of American democracy. The election of 1824 became a turning point in American politics, with tens of thousands of new voters, where the older system of members of Congress forming congressional caucuses to determine who would run no longer worked. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt offered Americans a New Deal aimed at rebuilding the economy after the downturn of the Great Depression. The influx of farming subsidies, unemployment programs, managed inflation rates, and the promise of pensions for millions through the Social Security Act of 1935 started the partisan divide. U.S. politics are shaped by two major political parties, Democrats and Republicans. Here, citizens have competing interests that differ based on their different backgrounds, special interest groups, lobbyists, and the media. Fast forward to today's political environment. During President Obama's presidency, his single greatest achievement was his namesake piece of legislation, Obamacare.
After all the votes have been tallied, health insurance reform becomes law in the United States of America.
Taking over from Barack Obama, President Donald Trump, analysts say, has accomplished monumental tax reform, the first of its kind in over 30 years, and that his efforts rolled back over 860 job-killing regulations, helping Americans keep more of what they earn, the military being rebuilt. After losing to his Democrat rival Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election, Donald Trump refused to concede, citing irregularities without official backup.
It's amazing how those mail-in ballots are so one-sided, too. I know that it's supposed to be to the advantage of the Democrats, but in all cases, they're so one-sided.
Donald Trump's refusal to accept the election results, even after the endorsement of the Electoral College, his critics say, led to the invasion of the Capitol on January 6, 2021. The invasion led to the death of 4 people, including a policeman.
The resolution is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
It also led to Donald Trump's impeachment, making him the first American president to be impeached twice in history. Donald Trump is the 19th Republican who have become president of the United States, while his successor, Joe Biden, is the 16th Democrat and the 46th President of the United States. Adebola Brooksley-Sunday, NTA News.
shall report there by Adebola Brookston something on the evolution of democracy in the United States of America. We'll sustain discussion on that, but quickly I hear one of our guests, Dr. Abdul Basit Kasim, is on via Zoom from the United States. Good to see you on the program.
Hello, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
He's a doctoral fellow at the Northwestern University. Well, what is it like over there?
So at the moment, the inauguration ceremony is currently taking place. As from what is obvious, there's intense security around the venue of the inauguration ceremony. There's a lot of excitement for some party that this feeling of healing and a renewed America emerging today, while for some others there's some sense of grievance that their favored candidate was actually not re-elected for the second time to take the oath of office. So that's what is currently happening. And also we've been getting different news about the key Republican Party officials who will be attending this inauguration. In the last couple of days, there wasn't certainty if the Vice President Mike Pence and his wife Karen Pence, if they're actually going to attend the inauguration ceremony. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, there was also no certainty as well that he's going to attend the inauguration. But in the dying minute, I think yesterday, the Office of the Vice President actually issued a bulletin that the Vice President will be present at the inauguration ceremony. So we are looking for huge turnout, possibly of officials actually from the Republican Party. But sadly, or unfortunately, the United States President will not be present today at the inauguration ceremony. He's actually holding a send-off party at one of his bases, I think Base Andrews, if I got that correctly. So he's not going to be present at the inauguration ceremony, and this it's actually ushered a departure from what is considered the norm actually for American democracy.
Okay, so from what you have seen, besides the fact that you have given us what it looks like, let's compare notes. On the day like this, during presidential inaugurals in the United States of America, it used to be fanfare, everybody's happy, but this time around, we have a lot of restrictions. How do you compare it?
Yes, so in the past, there's so many reasons why there are restrictions for this particular inauguration. The first major reason is the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic is still ravaging ravaging America. There's surge, an increase in the spike of new COVID patients, and there's also concern about the new variant as well. The new variants of the virus that is also spreading in America. So the first reason why this current inauguration looks different from other previous inauguration is because of the pandemic. And then secondly as well, there's also the concern about what happened at the Capitol Hill on January 6th. So the event of the Capitol Hill actually, it created the need or the exigency for more security measures to actually be set in place for this inauguration. So the U.S. military, I mean, we actually saw they brought the U.S. military in. They also hired private military guard, like security guard as well, to protect the venue of the inauguration. So you can see, I mean, you can see the military on the streets trying to protect and guard people attending the inauguration. So some of the events that happened in the last couple of weeks actually contributed to the secretized nature of this particular inauguration. So those two major factors, the pandemic as well as the events of the last 2 weeks, are the major factors that are actually shaping the way this inauguration is being organized.
Well, you listened to the last report we did. We looked at the evolution of democracy in the United States of America over the years, given what transpired and what used to happen before? Some will say it looks ugly, it looks gloomy, but some will say it's the beauty of democracy. So what do you say?
Oh yes, if there's anything to actually go by in America, I think the institution in America, the institutions, the founding fathers of America, the way they organized or the way they set up the ethos of democracy in this country, it actually didn't revolve around like certain individuals or the parties. Rather, it's all about the institutions. So the institutions, the democratic institutions in America, there appears to be more viable than one individual. So if you look at what has happened in America, I mean, if unfortunately the assaults that the President Trump has actually posed to American democracy, if not for the fact that America actually has strong institutions, the nature of American democracy will have dwindled, or it will have metamorphosed into another form of crazy, maybe autocracy or some form of authoritarianism. But that transition away from democracy to other forms of government did not take place, for the mere fact that America actually has very strong and vibrant institutions, from the judiciary as well as the Congress, as well as the Congress and the Senate. Those institutions are actually beyond just an individual. So despite the assault of President Trump on the media, on the judiciary, on the Congress, on different other institutions in America, the democracy still thrive for the mere fact that the institutions are more powerful. And I think there's one lesson, actually. This is what distinguishes America from other democracies around the world. I mean, if you look at other democracies from Iran to China, they often revolve around, I mean, certain individuals, they have huge control, they have huge influence on the nature and the pattern of the democracy. But in the case of America, the institution is actually what determines the trajectory and the pattern of American democracy.
Okay, Dr. Kazim, I'll get back to you. Let me hold you here for now. Now, it's a build-up, and we may likely be going to the venue shortly. As soon as the signals are through, we'll get there. But let me come to, okay, let's see what is happening right now at the Capitol.
And it did, and it will. Generations of Americans gave their lives to preserve our republic in this place. Great legislation to protect civil rights and economic security and lead the world was debated and crafted under this dome. Now it falls on all of us, not just the two leaders we are inaugurating today, to take up the torch of our democracy, not as a weapon of political arson, but as an instrument for good. We pledge today never to take our democracy for granted as we celebrate its remarkable strength. We celebrate its resilience, its grit. We celebrate the ordinary people doing extraordinary things for our nation, the doctors and nurses on the front line of this pandemic, the officers in the Capitol, a new generation never giving up hope for justice. We celebrate a new president, Joe Biden, who vows to restore the soul of America and cross the river of our divides to a higher plane. And we celebrate our first African American, first Asian American, and first woman Vice President, Kamala Harris, who stands on the shoulders of so many on this platform who have forged the way to this day. When she takes the oath of office, little girls and boys across the world will know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol steps and before this glorious field of flags, we rededicate ourselves to its cause. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible, my friend and the chair of the inaugural committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
The proceedings there for the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States of America. Now, Your Excellency,
there be a touch of snow up here this morning. Of all the things we'd considered, I don't think snow was on my agenda until I walked out the door.
Excellency, you heard what is happening over there, and never to take democracy for granted.
Yes, that is because democracy is actually an existential issue for them. Once you take it for granted, you are loosening the springs of governance, and you are disenfranchising people. And in the process, you are creating a recipe for chaos in the community, in society, in the country. Democracy is the glue that holds the country together. It gives opportunity for participation of everybody in selecting their leaders at the county level, state level, federal level. So this sense of belonging, of choosing your leader, is very critical to the American system. And it also establishes mechanisms for checks and balances in governments, which is actually originally aimed at ensuring that dictatorship is not created in America, or a monarchy was not established in the country. That is what their founding fathers envisaged and established. So the idea of democracy is not only a functional form of government, but also a philosophical idea to be imbibed by every citizen of that country to create attachment to the country. And I think it's very important we in Nigeria also see our democracy not as an exercise of repeated voting every 4 years, but a continuum that seeks to transcend our own narrow interest and builds a greater national cohesion, a vision for the development of Nigeria and Africa with Nigeria in the leadership. And I think that vision gives us a unique opportunity to exercise our abilities to create an environment whereby we can actually, indemnify not only our presence but our future in terms of establishing circumstances for the happiness of everybody, the security and safety of everybody, and above all, our dignity and our importance.
Okay, as much as the population at the venue there is restricted, we have former Republican leaders, lawmakers, and among those gathering at the Capitol right now for this inaugural. And the immediate past Vice President, Pence, is there, but the President is not there. How do you play that?
Well, nobody expected the President to be there. He had, true to his word, said that he would not attend. And actually, earlier today, he left for Florida to his Mar-a-Lago retreat. So as far as he is concerned, he is out of the picture. He is history. And a new chapter has been opened in the United States, in the American democracy, and in American governance, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are actually being sworn in today. And happily for the American system and the people, Vice President Pence decided to attend the inauguration and to forego attending the farewell ceremony at Andrews Air Force Base for his boss, Donald Trump. He thought, I think, he knew the controversy surrounding the absence of Republicans from the ceremony. So he joined reasonable, moderate, like-minded Republicans to appear at the ceremony. What are they sending? What message are they sending? They are sending a message that America is greater than all of them, that the government of America is important, no matter who is in the White House, that Americans must rally around their leader for the period of his or her duration in office in order to ensure continuity and succession, and also the success of government. despite individual party political differences. So I think that was the message they were sending.
Are we expecting a surprise today if you follow inaugurals of American presidents, which is fixed by law 20th January after an election?
Yes.
There's always a surprise by the president newly sworn in. Let's say Reagan, Obama, and today we're expecting an inaugural speech.
Yes.
A brief one at that from Joe Biden, who is going to become the 46th president of the United States.
Yeah.
Do you envisage a surprise from him?
Well, not so much of a surprise, but admission. Admission of inadequacies, deficiencies, and improvisations in the American governance system. And he will address the core issue of giving back the soul to the American system to appeal to the people to unite. So he has not made secret of his pressing demands that Americans must transcend political divide, ethnic and racial divide, and rally around their system in order to make their country functional and united again, particularly in the eyes of the rest of the world, where they have lost some sort of weight and some sort of respect in terms of the erratic behavior of the immediate past president. So he will appeal to Americans to unite. He will appeal for the soul of the United States, and also he will now reach out to the different divides that have actually created cleavages in the American system. So it's not much of a surprise we'll expect from him. He has declared his readiness to fight COVID, to allocate $1.93 trillion, as stimulus, to fighting the COVID and also supporting Americans. And he has also actually announced that 100 million vaccines will be distributed, or 100 million Americans will be vaccinated in the first 100 days. So I think these are the critical issues that he is going to formulate, I believe, in his speech, and also call for the support of Americans. So it's not the moment of surprise, but the moment of actually gathering, rallying the clan around him, that is the American clan around him, to move forward.
Okay, after the inaugural, one of the first things the president will do is to proceed to the White House and sign a couple of executive orders.
Yes, yes.
He crept into the Nigerian democracy.
Yeah.
And it's so regular with the American democracy.
Yes.
But some persons try to argue for and against it. What's your position?
Executive orders. Executive orders are prerogatives of the president because they are executives of the government to execute in terms of issuing out priority policy directives for the government to establish. Donald Trump, unfortunately, issued out a number of executive orders that went in the wrong direction or targeted at people who are disadvantaged. For instance, he banned people traveling from several Muslim countries into the United States. He signed executive order of building a wall, separation wall between Mexico and the United States and many others, and also repealing of the Obama care, and also withdrawing America from the Iran nuclear deal. So these are all executive orders that have had negative ramifications and reverberations around the world. Executive orders are useful in terms of concentrating the focus of the government on a single issue. So we say executive orders do not carry too many issues in them. They are single issue projects that the government or the president issues in order to circumvent bureaucracy, particularly what it relates parliaments and Congress, so that it's just like a shortcut to achieving a directive. So people may argue for or against it, but it's really essentially something is an expedience, that president resort to in order to register their the urgency of their consideration of matters, and also to indicate that they are on top of situations.
Okay. Let's go back to U.S. where Dr. Kazim. Okay, I hear we are going back to Capitol Hill now. Let's see what's happening over there.
Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of our national colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, here for the singing of our national anthem, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, please welcome Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga in by Lady Gaga standards, a relatively subdued inaugural outfit, appropriate for the moment. I need to rethink my outfit. I am clearly grossly underdressed for this occasion. I'm now going to have to try and find a massive big gold brooch and a gold microphone to go with it. Lady Gaga, who worked with the Biden and Obama administrations when Barack Obama was president and campaigned for Joe Biden, they're belting out the Pledge of Allegiance. Ron Christie, former advisor to George W. Bush. I'm not quite sure who it was, Ron, who sang the Pledge of Allegiance. Who sang the national anthem back when George Bush was inaugurated, but that wasn't bad, was it?
Good day, Kathy. No, she certainly brought down the house, and by Lady Gaga standards, boy, she was pretty understated, but it was a great recitation of our national anthem.
Now we have Andrea Hall reading the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman Vice President, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome Jennifer Lopez to perform This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, accompanied by members of the President's Own United States Marine Band.
And Jennifer Lopez, who is joining the star-studded inauguration, J-Lo coming out also to perform. She will be singing an American musical selection. She has been considered, of course, one of the most influential Latin entertainers in American history, and has been a campaigner for Joe Biden as well, and a staunch ally of this vice president, of this president-elect. Following on from Lady Gaga.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking down that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. From sea to shining sea, una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos. Was made for you and me.
Compilation there of This Land and America the Beautiful from Jennifer Lopez, who has been an outspoken advocate of how the coronavirus has disproportionately affected Hispanics in America, and they're taking her place as the most influential Latin American entertainer in the country at the moment.
It is now my distinct honor to introduce the Chief
Senator Klobuchar, by the way, known for her sense of humor.
United States, John Roberts, to administer the presidential oath to the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Well, that was short and sweet. Joe Biden has waited his entire political career for that moment. It took less than a minute, and the Chief Justice of the United States declared Joe Biden President of the United States at 11:48 in the morning.
technically, he is not president for another 11 minutes. Under the Constitution, it is absolutely clear. One person is president until midday, and the next person takes over from that. But I suspect nobody is quibbling with that right now for the sake of 11 minutes.
Well, that's it. The moment of history. The 46th president of the United States of America has been sworn in, Joseph Biden. Your Excellency, what do you make of this? Change of guard, a new dawn.
Yes. Well, quite so, change of guard. But you will see, Mr. Odem, the simplicity of the ceremony. There are no large crowds, no complications, no elaborate, apparatuses around in order to complicate matters. Very short, sharp, and straight. So I think, they know how to solemnize occasions, to create a sense of patriotism in their citizens, and to send the message of the importance of such ceremonies and such occasions in order to galvanize the sentiments of people and create attachment to the offices that are being solemnized today. So I think it's very important for us to realize that the solemnity of state functions are important in underlining how important they are. So do not create situations whereby you find everybody jostling for position, claiming the right, of precedence and things like that. A small committee, I'm sure, in Washington sat down with some relevant offices to actually organize all these things we have seen. Very simple, very straightforward, and actually, very short ceremonies. And the music that the singing and other things are simply to add color, to add buoyancy and effervescence, to what has happened, and to remind people that this is not all gloom and doom, but it is a happy occasion for people to actually enjoy the moment, whether they are there present or they are watching on television.
Okay, quickly, now that Joe Biden has been sworn in, let's take a listen to this report put together by Joyce Ometu, the journey through what Joe Biden has been through, the journey from being one of the youngest senators in the history to the oldest American president.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify.
Joseph Robinette Biden, nicknamed Joe Biden, was born into a blue-collar family on November 20th, 1942 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. At age 10, he moved to Delaware, where he spent the rest of his childhood. Joe Biden served as a lifeguard in a majority black community. This experience heightened his interest in politics. As a child, Biden had a stutter. He overcame the impediment and attended the University of Delaware and then...
We have to put a hold to that. Let's go back to Capitol, where the president is about to give a speech.
People, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We're good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country has taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America. We've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh. All of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again. Hear one another. See one another. Show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand, across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. If you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay staring at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again. Not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And in my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And will give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Joseph R. Biden, who is now the 46th President of the United States of America, with his inaugural
Very inspiring speech there by the 46th President of the United States of America. Your Excellency, quite inspiring. What do you make of the speech?
It is. It's full of spiritual appeal to the soul of America. It is a down-to-earth, honest, transparent speech. President Joe Biden bared his soul to Americans and to the world. His sincerity, his openness, and his largeness of heart to accommodate everybody and not to exclude anyone. And it's interesting that he should quote St. Augustine, an African bishop of North African origin, rather than quoting Plato or Socrates or Cicero or de Tocqueville or Voltaire or any of the philosophers of the West. He chose to anchor his speech on the Bible and on the writings of one of the founding fathers of the church. And it is very important for us to capture this significance, because this is a man who cares for people, who has conviction of God.
I sign it all the excellency. It began by saying democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, but democracy has prevailed.
Exactly. Well, our democracy has indeed prevailed with this election, and also Americans turning their back against division, chaos, and confusion. And I think that is the importance of what you earlier asked, whether institutions or individuals should prevail. I think combination of the two, members of Congress, members of the executive, military leaders, civil servants, business people, everybody rallied around the Constitution and stressed the supremacy of the rule of law. And that is what we saw today.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Usman Saki. It was nice having a chat to you on this special program.
It's a great pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We'll sign it off now, but quickly before we call in our next guest, we'll take this report on the man, Joe Biden, put together by Joyce Ometo.
To be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify.
Joseph Robinette Biden, nicknamed Joe Biden, was born into a blue-collar family on November 20th, 1942 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. At age 10, he moved to Delaware, where he spent the rest of his childhood. Joe Biden served as a lifeguard in a majority black community. This experience heightened his interest in politics. As a child, Biden had a stutter. He overcame the impediment and attended the University of Delaware and then Syracuse Law School. In 1966, Biden married Niela Hunter. They had 3 children. Biden successfully ran for the U.S. Senate in 1972, becoming the 5th youngest senator in U.S. history.
So what you've done, I do. Congratulations, Senator. Thank you.
Fresh off his U.S. Senate victory, tragedy struck the Biden family. His wife Niela and daughter Naomi were both killed in a car accident that also left his 2 sons, Bill and Hunter, injured. His ability to rise above that tragedy is well known by Americans, as they say Biden's challenges gave him a tough strength of character and sense of decency.
This is a man who lives a simple life, takes a train from Delaware to Washington almost throughout his senatorship days, even when they handed over power with Barack Obama. Joe Biden took a train back to Delaware to his village. The man is an embodiment of humility. The man also has that empathy. You need to go back to the 80s and to see the position that Joe Biden took in trying to see that African countries liberate.
He married his second wife, Jill Biden, in 1977, with whom he had a daughter. In 1988, Joe Biden made an unsuccessful attempt to run for president and then returned to the Senate. Biden won re-election to the Senate 6 times. In 2008, Joe Biden again ran for president. He lost the primaries to Barack Obama, who then chose him as his running mate. They defeated Republican nominees John McCain and Sarah Palin in the general election. Joe Biden was also re-elected to the Senate in 2008, but he gave up that seat to become vice president. On January 20th, 2009, Biden was sworn in as vice president of the United States.
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. The duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. So help me God. Thank you, Mr. Justice.
As part of Obama's team, Biden helped shape the stimulus package and reforms after the 2008 financial crisis. Biden was also responsible for overseeing infrastructure spending to jumpstart the economy after the 2008 financial crisis, and also led negotiations with congressional Republicans that produced the 2010 Tax Relief Act. On the military front, he helped pass the New START treaty between the U.S. and Russia. supported NATO-led efforts to depose Muammar Gaddafi and aided with the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq in 2011.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction to my brother, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr.
Biden's 8 years as vice president was highlighted by Obama awarding him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the 2 highest civilian awards in the United States. After Biden and Obama stepped down at the end of 2 terms, they were succeeded by Republican President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence. 4 years after leaving office, Joe Biden was chosen as the Democratic nominee for U.S. president in the 2020 elections. He chose Senator Kamala Harris of California as his running mate, and together they defeated incumbents Trump and Pence in the general elections. The victory of Joe Biden over Donald Trump makes him first former vice president to win the Oval Office since George Bush, who won in 1988 after 8 years under Ronald Reagan. Joseph Robinette Biden is America's oldest president, as the previous oldest president was the late Reagan, who was 77 when he left office in 1989. Joyce Ometu, NTA News.
Thank you, Joy. And before quickly we go to US now, where we're being joined by Dr. Kazim via Zoom. I'm being joined here by Professor Oshita Oshita. Professor Oshita Oshita is the Executive Director of the Ubuntu Center for Africa Peace Building and Development, and also former DG of the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Good to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Before I quickly go to US now, America has been tested. The American story depends on all.
Yeah, good, powerful statement by President Joe Biden. We can see from the speech he has just given that he's very ready to repair America. And he said it passionately in a way that, you know, for some time now we have not heard from America. So I think it is only normal that we expect the best from Joe Biden, because actually America is broken as never before. And from this speech, the healing process has started, because he has said that he will be president for all, those who voted for him and those who did not vote for him. So it is important, you know, to take those words as words from a statesman, a man who is ready to really repair the soul of America. And we look forward to what he will be doing from day one.
I'll take you on other perspectives. Let's quickly go to Dr. Kazim, who is joining us via Zoom. Dr. Kazim, you heard the speech, and everything about is about the way forward for America. And basically, let's talk about his emphasis on inequity, systemic racism. He has given the assurance that he will drive this. How do you react to this?
Thank you so much for having me. So one of the major campaign agenda of the President-elect Joe Biden is the notion of inclusivity in government. And even before he was sworn in today, we've actually seen in the cabinet, because the moment he was declared the winner of the election, they set up the transition team, the office of the president-elect, and he started appointing people into his cabinet. And what we've seen so far is his cabinet seems to be one of the most diverse cabinets in American politics. I mean, he actually brought people from different race, the South Asians, the Native Americans, the African Americans, as well as Africans, or as well as Black Americans of Africa, or who migrate, of African immigrants. So, for example, we have people like Adewale Adeyemo, that's Wale Adeyemo of the Obama Foundation, who is currently the Deputy Treasury Secretary. And we also have other immigrants as well, who were actually selected to be part of his cabinet. So one thing we've seen so far is Biden is not just saying, he's not just speaking, he's also putting his words into action as well. And I think this notion of inclusivity is something that unfortunately has actually been missing in the past 4 years of President Trump's presidency. I mean, his presidency was to a large extent actually less inclusive in terms of convergence of multiple, or in terms of convergence of different races. But for President Biden, I think this notion of inclusivity will go a long way in providing antidotes to the anomaly of systemic racism in America. It might also go a long extent as well in providing antidote to the scourge of white supremacy, which is currently plaguing the American society.
Dr. Kazim, it was nice sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I'm back here in Abuja. Prof, basically, you are a peace and conflict resolution advocate. And you have always sustained one position that conflict resolution is evolving. It's not static. Yeah. And it's the painstaking thing. For what the president has said, is it reassuring? Does it give hope to the Americans themselves, hope to the world, the need for people to now believe back on the American ideals?
Absolutely. From the speech, the world is being invited to trust America once more. And also, Americans are being invited to have faith in their country. You know, and he talks about neighbors. Americans should see each other as neighbors. You understand? And he talks about, you know, accept the other, accept people who do not look like you. You know, he's trying to reconstruct, because his predecessor has deconstructed a lot of what, you know, used to be what we knew about America. He deconstructed a lot of that. So the assignment that President Biden has from today, from his speech, is to reconstruct, give back hope to those who were losing hope in America. For example, you know, look at what is happening at the border with Mexico. You know, people are going back to America because they see the country as welcoming once more. They can't wait. And so it is with people who are in their various countries, who have different things to go and do in America. In fact, throughout the 4 years of President Trump's presidency, many people had just told themselves they won't go to America for anything, because it was like there was no dignity in going to America. Yeah, because even the body language, the conversation that you find President Trump making simply says that, look, you are not welcome here. And we are in a multilateral world. You understand? So if things are like that in America, that is the foundation of democracy. Absolutely. So it wasn't good these last 4 years. So we look for fresh air. We see that there's fresh air, yes, you know, in the air, even before he took his oath a few minutes ago. Okay, yeah.
I'll come back to you. Let's quickly go back to Dr. Baba Adams, who has been waiting via Skype. Dr. Baba Adams is one of the highest ranking Nigerian born in the United States, one-time Dean, Associate Vice President, and Vice President at the several universities and colleges in the United States of America. How do you feel about today?
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you. Go ahead. How do you feel about today?
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. It's a great day for democracy in America. President Joe Biden is just sworn in. As they say, thank God it all ended well with the former President Trump. We are elated and excited. This ushers in a wonderful bilateral possibility of bilateral relationship with Nigeria, and as a matter of fact with the whole African continent. So we are pretty excited about this. President Biden have already reached out to us directly, and we have communicated that to Abuja.
Okay, in a couple of minutes after this inaugurals, the president will proceed to the White House and he will sign a couple of executive orders. Already has done some. One of it is the issue of reversing the position of America regarding climate change. So what are you prospecting?
Well, there are many executive orders in the first day plus the next 100 days. But some of those are the Paris Accord of Climate Change, which former President Trump withdrew. Today, President Biden is going to reinstate at least commitment to going back. He has selected the former U.S. Secretary of State Kerry as a special envoy on climate, so that will be reinstated today. In addition to that, there is about more than 50 or so executive orders during the former President Trump administration, which will be reversed, all of them possibly today or within the next 100 days. The one which is of special interest to Nigeria is putting the visa ban on Nigerian immigrants, which we have clearly communicated with the Biden administration is xenophobic and is unacceptable, and we are looking forward that to be reversed.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Back to Professor Still. Prof, when you look at it today, besides the fact that the 46th President of the United States has been sworn in, the Vice President, first 49th Vice President, first black lady, and highest woman to serve in the highest position in the American government. Looking at it from the way it is going, during Obama, and now Africa is somewhere in the corner. What do you think stands for Africa in this new government? Well, before we come down to Nigeria.
Yeah. This is the spirit of inclusivity. You understand? America is a highly diverse, nation. So that Obama, an African American, became president, and now we have a vice president who is a woman, of African Caribbean descent, is also, a sign that, especially the Democrats are more inclusive than the Republicans, because that is what it shows from the way things have been going in the country, in the politics. So it means that we look forward to, more opening up, more inclusivity, and more, the diversity that recognizes non-white populations. And that is a good thing, because America would never have been a country if it was not as diverse as it is.
Okay, the United Nations was worried when they launched the Alliance for Poverty Eradication in the world, given the position of the former president. Now that this one appears very friendly, do you see that alliance working perfectly?
That alliance and many other things that have not worked well will begin to work, properly. The gentleman ambassador just spoke about denial of visas, to Nigerian immigrants. But you know that the whole world, America saying that climate change was not an important issue was such a terrible setback, for progress, for development. You understand? And there are other things. If you are not from certain countries, you cannot come into America. That's also very backward. As I said before, we are in a multilateral world. But where the last regime in the U.S. under Trump put us was as if there was no recognition that, that we are in a world that is moving together. consider the issue of the World Trade Organization leadership. I mean, things don't work like that. I believe that what the former regime under President Trump did was, you know, to forget that we are in a world that should be moving together, and then took us back to when we had the Cold War, because the style was an old style, as if we were in the Cold War. Look at the battle with China. You know, these are preventable battles. Look at the issue of Iran nuclear deal. You know, I mean, the world needs peace, and you can't have peace unless you discuss. Okay. You understand?
Okay, so let's go to Dr. Dr. Adams. I believe you're still there. You can hear me. Quickly, okay, the signals have dropped. Now, let's proceed now. You have scratched the World Trade Organization briefly. Yes. Would this in any way, given the former stance, reverse what was not supposed to happen and happen the way it should happen?
Well, I believe that there are quite a number of things that global leaders will take a second look. Because we have been through 4 years of American leadership that were not predictable at all, you know, and that were not on the path that the world, you know, thought that we would be moving. You understand? America could have acted like a bully under the Cold War era, but not, you know, in the post-Cold War era, where we are not just talking about multilateralism, but we also have we have decentralized power. You cannot ignore China. You cannot ignore some other country. You can't even ignore Iran. So if you, as the president of the most powerful nation in the world, you take, you know, individual battles with this, I mean, you're disorganizing the
That also led
world.
me to ask this. Let me also ask you differently. With what happened in the United States of America, what lesson for Africa, African leaders, African institutions? Now the question is, who determines national interest? Is it an individual or institutions?
No, that is a big lesson that we all must learn. If it wasn't for the resilience of American institutions, today would not have been there. Joe Biden would not have been president. You understand? So that again tells us that we must empower our institutions. You understand? So I believe that this is a big lesson. When we fail to build institutions, when we fail to give institutions their own lives, then we are heading in a way that we cannot have a sustainable, you know, development. We can't have sustainable development in the context of individuals being, because what Trump was doing was to take the power of institutions. But the American system resisted that.
Let's break here and take this report. As much as Nigeria foreign policy is Afrocentric, America has its own direction. When you say the American style, the American ideal, let's take a listen to this report put together by Justin Benwiri on the American foreign policy.
I hereby discontinue my activities at the post of President of the USSR.
After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, which ended the Cold War, the post-Cold War world has in the past been considered by some to be a unipolar world, with the United States as the world's sole remaining superpower. In 1999, Samuel Huntington wrote, "The United States, of course, is the sole state with preeminence in every domain of power, with the reach and capability to promote its interests in virtually every sphere of life and every part of the world." On the platform of diplomatic relations with nations of the world, the United States has formal diplomatic relations with most nations. This includes all UN member states and UN observer states other than UN member states Bhutan, Iran, North Korea and Syria, South Korea, and the UN observer state of Palestine. Additionally, the US has diplomatic relations with the European Union and Kosovo. For several years, the United States had the most diplomatic posts of any state, but as of 2020, it was second to the People's Republic of China.
Of course, China and other countries are emerging world powers, but the United States basically has assumed that position after the fall of the Soviet Union, the USSR. The United States relations with the world has been back and forth, has always been aggressive in some regards, and in some places it has always maintained the balance of relations with other countries.
We will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
President Donald Trump made some of his flashiest 2016 campaign pledges in foreign policy areas, such as vowing to reevaluate the U.S. relationship with NATO, abandon a landmark nuclear deal with Iran, and bring U.S. troops back from forever wars.
I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care.
Donald Trump, a former businessman from New York who boasts about his deal-making skills, has delivered on some of his pledges while partially meeting a few others.
I will never, ever let you down. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will build new roads and highways and bridges.
He, however, failed completely to achieve others.
It's strictly, he said he wants Americans to be for Americans. So that's the trust of his regime. It affected everybody, both outsiders and the insiders in America, because most of them, part of them, they are colors. They are not Americans. So definitely, like a time that he described Africa as a shithole. He's telling you, I know up to today, throughout his 4 years, he did not allow some selected African countries to get permanent residence in America, which is unusual.
That reported by Justice Ben, we took a look at the foreign policy direction of the United States of America. Let's go back to Professor Baba Adams. Professor Baba Adams, I was to ask you before your signals dropped. Professor Sita here touched on it briefly. Will this change the narrative in view of the fact that the African Continental Free Trade Area has taken off? Nigeria is trying to play a dominant role there, given our resource base. Now let's fast track to WTO, the whole politic in there. Will it somehow change?
Are you saying that the narrative of America with the rest of the world is changing, or I didn't hear the question very well, sir. Some noise in the background.
Can we get your audio? We can't get your audio. Can you speak louder? We can't get your audio.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
You're low. Can you speak up?
I cannot hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Oh, really? I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. I can hear you. Can you repeat the question again,
the
sir?
question simply is, with the takeoff of trading activities at the African Continental Free Trade Zone, Nigeria,
hey, come on in.
Nigeria prospects to play a dominant role there with what we have.
How are you?
Our resource base. What would be our position if eventually we take our position as DG of the World Trade Organization?
Okay, all right.
This is live special.
Well, this is something pretty critical for Africa and the world. What is going on is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which just came in beginning of the year, made Africa the largest trading bloc. As U.S. being the global economic power now, which will soon be replaced by China, it means a lot in terms of relationship in that. In terms of the former Honorable Minister Okonjo-Iweala, we supported her, and President Trump, she was actually the finalist by the World Trade Organization Committee, but former President Trump's administration objected. So with the new Biden presidency, we are hoping that former Honorable Minister will be confirmed. But we will see what happens. And again, Nigerian government gave a robust support for her candidacy in that. But overall, it will be a game changer. It will address many of our issues in Nigeria, such as poverty, such as development, and so on. So the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is very vital in terms of the future.
Professor Baba Adams, it was nice speaking with you on the program. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Prof, we're back here. Let's play some global politics here. Nigeria, United States has a strong binational commission which has been functioning over the years. With the change of guard, a new dawn, and the president has talked about the fact that as he's being sworn in, he will press forward with speed and urgency. We should start playing our own games. What games should Nigeria be playing to launch in and hold grip of this present administration?
Well, you have mentioned one of the important platforms, you know, that bilateral platforms that Nigeria uses to engage America, the Binational Commission. I think the right thing to do now is for the Secretariat of the Binational Commission to begin to look at things that have been on the table that have not been properly prosecuted during the last regime, so that as the Biden administration takes off, those things can be properly presented. At least we can see from his language, you know, where we also talk about body language. This time it's beyond body language. His commitment is palpable. So we can now prepare to engage America in a more robust way that Nigeria can benefit, you know, at the intergovernmental and also at, you know, population, you know, relation levels. So I think that the Binational Commission has its own issues that they use, you know, to engage. When I was in the, in government, I attended some of the meetings of the Binational Commission. So I know that there are a lot of things that Nigeria can now, you know, put on the table and engage, you know, the American government under President Biden and have more fruitful, you know, feedback than the previous regime.
Well, ultimately, it looked a bit worrisome and gloomy when a few things happened before today.
Yeah.
It has happened now, we have seen it. We ask now, I always want to ask, what should Africa, starting with the AU, ECOWAS, African leaders generally, learn from the American example?
Well,
across board.
Yes, there's a lot to learn. Like I said before, institutions are the things that, you know, keep nations moving. You know, even the memory of nations is with institutions. It's not with individuals. You understand? So the more we focus on building institutions, the better for African countries. There are many things that you see. We can't do them right because the institutions don't have, you know, the foundation. They don't have, you know, they are not penetrating enough, you know, to be able to be allowed, you know, to move on. So individuals decide, you know, to turn themselves into institutions. No, institutions live forever. Individuals don't. And so the beauty of building institutions is what America has benefited this past, you know, couple of months, you know, and especially from the January 6th, you know, insurrection at the Capitol. So institutions put their feet on the ground and individuals cannot. If American institutions were not strong, President Trump will still be in the White House. And that is the truth. Okay. And of course, he has signaled today that he's coming in another form from his departure speech, okay. You know.
Professor Oshita, Executive Director, the Ubuntu Center for Africa Peace and Peace Building and Development. It was nice having you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that is on this special edition of the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States of America. It was nice sharing your time with us. Thanks for watching.